Welcome, and we have a good tape for you. If you purchase this tape, or if you're watching it through the network, this is your kind of stuff. It's called Sex and Drugs, and it doesn't have an X rating on it because it comes out of the mythology of the Bible. And if you don't realize the mythology of the Bible and the symbolism of the Bible, if you can't get it through this particular message, the next one called The Spotted Cow will certainly do it, which comes next week. But you're at Genesis chapter 29, verse 30. I think it's around page 25. And what you have here is a listing of Jacob, who becomes that ego within us, that the personality, with that which will deliver us to the divine mind. And the story goes that he has two wives, and one is called Leah, the other is Rachel. Okay. Rachel will provide that which is the right hemisphere, that which is the divine part of our being. Leah is that which is the left hemisphere, that which is the physical part. Each equally important, but yet with much different things to do. Okay? So on the left side we have our emotional nature, Leah, and on the right side we have our divine nature, which is Rachel. Okay? And remember, it takes that which is the child of promise, which is tuned to the right side, which is Jacob. Okay? So we see the formation. What you'll also see, which is very interesting in here, is you'll see the formation of the 12 signs of the zodiac. Jacob is the father of the zodiac. Jacob is the father of the 12 signs of the zodiac as far as the Bible goes. Of course, back to Babylon and so forth, we had the knowledge of the 12 signs of the zodiac long before the Bible. But in this particular context that we're studying in, Jacob is given to be the father of the 12 signs of the zodiac. And actually, you can read that in Genesis 49 at another time. But what Jacob will do is exactly what you and I do. Jacob will intercourse with Leah, with the emotional nature. And produced out of that intercourse of the emotional nature will be the various aspects of the mind which are represented by the signs of the zodiac. That's what this is about, say. And very few people see it. I mean, to the average person, it becomes a Bible story about this guy that can't get out of bed. I mean, he just every time he sees something with a skirt on, he's jumping in and let's go to it. That's all this guy does. Say. But here, if you stay with me and look at this, you'll see something very interesting as it develops. And remember something, that the word Leah actually means weary. Of course, after you get through reading this story, you think Jacob should be the one that would be weary. But nonetheless, Leah means weary, say. And Leah was hated. She wasn't favored as Rachel was. There's a difference here. Leah is that emotional side of you, the side that produces the thoughts, produces the children of the left side, of your physical nature. And some of the thoughts are very fearful. Some of the thoughts are very depressing. Some of the thoughts are very exhilarating. Some of the thoughts are very good. Some of the thoughts are not so good. Very, very important is Leah. See? And she will intercourse with you. Rachel cannot. Because Rachel is that divine right side, which can only be opened by that which we call God, which flowers from within and produces the child of promise. And that's the beautiful part of this. But look at Genesis chapter 29, verse 31 on page 25. In Genesis chapter 29 and verse 31, it says that Leah was hated. He opened her womb. God opened her womb so she could bear. But Rachel was barren. Rachel was barren. Because Rachel is going to provide only that which can be provided through God. In the same way that Sarah provided, in the same way that Manoah provided, in the same way that Elizabeth provided, in the same way that Mary provided. All of these that are barren means that divine part of the womb which cannot be stimulated by human thought, which cannot be stimulated by the human physical representation of intercourse. This here represents that which is the aspect of good and evil, the left side. Leah. Okay? If you look on page 924, it says in Romans chapter 8 and verse 7. On page 924. Romans chapter 8, verse 7. Okay? Because the carnal mind is enmity against God. It is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be. But it is absolutely necessary. It's the most beautiful part of being alive. It's your physical realm. It's the part that loves music. It's the part that loves to read. It's the part that loves to work. It's the part that loves to go to places and be entertained. It's the part that loves to play in sports. It's the part that loves to go on vacation. It's all of these great, beautiful things that you're created to experience. So don't put it down. Don't think that the flesh is an evil thing. It's not at all. It's just another part of that of the equation that is life has two parts. And there's a right side and there's a left side. Both equally, but both having different things to do. And so Leah is that part that can be weary. Leah is that part that can be depressed. Leah is that part that can be difficult for us. But Leah is extremely important. While Rachel is barren, she can only be opened by divine intercourse. But when she is opened by divine intercourse, she will bring you the child of promise. That's the beautiful part of this. She will bring forth within you the child of promise. And so it says in verse 32. Of Genesis chapter 29. Okay. Leah conceived. Now Leah has intercourse with Jacob. And Leah conceived. And bare a son, called his name Reuben, which means behold the son. And the zodiacal sign which identifies Reuben is Aquarius. The birth of Aquarius. Okay. The first of the 12 tribes. In verse 33 it says, and she conceived again. Here's Jacob's at it again. See, Rachel is off by herself because the right side is off by herself. But Jacob is at it again, and Leah conceives again, and she gives birth to Simeon, means hearing. And Simeon represents the sign, Gemini. Gemini. And of course, Jacob gave her time to go get a drink of water, and here they go again. It says in verse 34, and she conceived again and bare a son and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi, which means adhesion. And he is also part of Gemini. Simeon and Levi are brethren. You know, somebody said to me last night, hey, you know, this is an interesting thing. You're talking about the 12 signs of the zodiac, but somewhere they have now, astronomy or whatever, these scientists have discovered a 13th sign. And I thought for a minute. I said, this is great. You know why? Because Jacob didn't have 12. He had 13. Simeon and Levi were brothers. Wow. That's really good. See? So anyhow, that happens in verse 34. And in verse 35, here's Jacob at it again, and here goes Leah again, and they have another one. And it says in verse 35, and she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Judah is the zodiacal sign Leo. King. King. And it says in verse 35, I will praise the Lord, and she called his name Judah, and she left bearing. The woman is absolutely worn out. She is, that's it. She said, Jacob, get away already. Forgot to get away. Can't handle you. So Jake looks around, what am I going to do? I'm here, I'm the Bible, what am I going to do? I've got to do something. And so, what happens? Genesis 30 verse 1. It says in Genesis 30 verse 1, and when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and she said unto Jacob, give me some children or I'm going to die. See, we're seeing what develops in the mind, the understanding that the child of promise must be born of this, or the spirit will die. Unless you allow this which is within you to give birth to this magnificent thing of nature which is happening now, that spirit within you will die. And it's up to you. It's such a beautiful personal thing. It's an intercourse that happens within your mind. But unless you allow it to flower within you, that spirit within you will die. And that's what she says, let me have a child. But you do the same thing now. Watch what Jacob says. In Genesis chapter 30, verse 2, Jacob's anger was kindled against her. He says, am I in God's stead? I haven't done this to you. What can I do? In other words, Jacob portrays the frustration of all of us. How can you do anything? It's like when you come into meditation, you say, you know, I've sat here and I've done this, but I don't feel like I've gotten anything out of it. What can I do? How do I do this? And now we say, well, go see Elliot. Maybe he can tell you how to do it. What do I do? How can you possibly make that right side flower? How can you possibly make that right side open up? How can you possibly do it? And that's what the frustration of Jacob is. What can I do? What can you do? You can intercourse with the left side. You do it all the time. And you create thoughts within your mind. And you create situations for yourself, and you create some good situations, and you create some negative situations. But create you do. Constantly you're intercoursing with Leah. Constantly you're intercoursing with the left side. And if nothing's going on, you'll invite her into your room, and you'll intercourse because you've got to produce something. If there is no trouble, we'll create trouble. And in Genesis chapter 30, verse 3, the human condition, we don't even know how to open the womb. So we turn to the left side where we input, we create religion. And Rachel says, behold my maid Bilhah, go into her. And Jacob says, okay. Jacob's got himself another one. And so Bilhah, B-I-L-H-A-H, he starts to have sex with her. Why? Bilhah picks up where Leah leaves off. It's the same thing. It's just a different name to make a storyline, to make a mythology. But it's still that left side. Because, Jacob, you can't do anything about the right side. Hey, every one of you sitting here, you cannot open the right side. The right side must be opened by God, which is within you, which is the energy within you. If you will allow it, and you'll see how sex and drugs gets involved in here and actually makes it a part of your understanding of how this occurs and what you must do. And drugs plays a part. Sex plays a part. How do you do this? Behold my maid Bilhah, go into her. Now, look what it says here. Behold my maid Bilhah. I want you to compare something with the story of Abraham and Sarah. Leave your finger right in there in Genesis 30 verse 3, but go back to page 11 to Genesis 16. Genesis 16 and verse 2. Okay? Feeling good, Albert. Feeling good. Getting there. You know, I feel like a train, you know, when the train's going, and then suddenly, and it starts clicking on the rails. Woo! You know, you feel it? Sarah just looked up and said, what? This guy is weird. Who's messing around with Bilhah? Genesis chapter 16, verse 2. And look what it says in 16, verse 2. And Sarah said unto Abraham, behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go into my maid. See? Why? Why did the Lord restrain her from bearing? Because she cannot bring forth a child by way of the intercourse with the flesh. She must bring forth a child when the womb opens up by a divine process. You cannot bring forth this. See, this is the doggone problem here. Whether you're touching the stone, whatever you're doing, you want to call it kundalini, you want to call it pineal gland, whatever you want to call it. The point is you've got to remember that there are certain things required of you, and when you will comply with those certain things which are electronic within your brain, then it will open. Then the door to the temple will open, you know, and the door to the temple and the womb of that which is the mother of promise are exactly the same thing. Hagar, Bilhah, Leah are the emotions of the left side. Sarah and Rachel provide the real child of spirit. We create the emotional child of religion. This is why you have all of this stuff. And you say, why are people filled with stress? Why are people weary? Why are people depressed and angry? Because they've been having and producing children through Bilhah and Leah and all of these other and Hagar. See, you know what the word Bilhah means? Faltering. Faltering. That's what the word Bilhah means, faltering. It means bashful, it means the left side. Leah means weary. Hagar means stranger. Bilhah means faltering. Faltering, stranger, weary. How are you going to produce a child by intercoursing with that which is faltering, that which is bashful, that which is weary, that which is depressed, that which is a stranger? They will not deliver the child of promise. And so in Genesis chapter 30, verse 4, Jacob goes at it again and intercourses with Bilhah and continues to create religion and continues to create emotionalism. It says in Genesis chapter 30, verse 6, Rachel claims Bilhah's son. See, what we're considering is that which is born of the left side belongs to the right. Here, this is exactly what we do. Oh, we had a great time. The power of the Lord was in this place. It was moving all over me, brother. Hallelujah, brother. And we got our arms up in the air, and we're jumping up in the air, and we have claimed that this is spirit, but this is emotions. What I just did for you now is emotion. It's all emotion. It has nothing to do with spirit. Because spirit blossoms in the inner place within you where the womb is closed and dark and it opens in silence and it creates without a sound. But Rachel says, this is my son. No, Rachel, it's not. That's the son of the emotions. That's the son of Bilhah. That's the son of that which is faltering. And Bilhah has a son. And it says in Genesis chapter 30 and verse 6, and she calls his name Dan. And Dan means judge. And Dan is the sign Scorpio. And they're all part of you. And they're all part of me. And you want to talk about the 12 signs? And you can tell Albert, who's a physicist, and if you open that skin off the top of your head, you'll see 6 places on the left side of your brain and 6 places on the right side of your brain, which are the 12 signs, which are the 12 signs of the zodiac, which correspond to those signs where there are 6 here and 6 there in the universe. As it is here, so it is there. That's why it works exactly the same. And these are the 12. Genesis chapter 30, verse 7, she conceives again. Jake is not wasting a moment. Gives him time to have lunch, goes down to McDonald's, comes back, bang, here we go again. And Rachel claims this child. Look at Genesis chapter 30, verse 8. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And now Spirit is saying that she's prevailed. Rachel, you haven't prevailed. You haven't prevailed. And you sing a song, we have overcome. You have overcome nothing. Because the womb is still barren. The silence in the temple is still there. The darkness in the temple is still there. Everything that is going on in the left side. And you're looking at it and you think, this must be religious. So I'll put a big hat on my head, and I'll put stained glass windows on, and I'll put big spires all over the place, and I'll ring bells, ding dong, and I'll say prayers, and I have big books and Bibles, and everybody will come in and will say, yes, look at this, look what we have produced, look at all these children. But yet inside of themselves, the womb is still barren. They produce nothing. They've overcome nothing. And in Genesis chapter 38, with great wrestlings have I wrestled, and she called his name Naphtali. Naphtali means my wrestling, and it is the sign Capricorn. In Genesis 30, verse 9, it said, Leah leaves bearing, and so she introduces Jake to a new lady, and her name is Zilpah. Read it! Read it yourself. Zilpah. And you know what Zilpah means? Here we got another one, folks. Drooping. Drooping. So here's the stranger. Here now we have drooping. We have anger. We have weary. We have... huh? 7 dwarfs, drooping. So what is drooping going to do? You may see Jake. Jake just gets done with Bilhah, which is faltering. Now he's got Zilpah, which is drooping.
He's taking the drugs.
Right. And he started the whole thing, which is weary. But anyhow, here comes Zilpah. And obviously the child of promise will not be born of drooping. But it says in Genesis chapter 30, in verse 11, Leah said, because drooping has give birth, a droop comes, and she called his name Gad, and Gad is the zodiacal sign Aries. And in verse 13, drooping does it again. Jake and drooping. Do you realize how many women this man has worn out? To the point where they come from the stranger, takes care of that one. From bashful, takes care of that one. From weary, takes care of that one. From faltering, takes care of that one. And he's finally got it down to drooping. But Jake is undaunted. Jake is undaunted. Okay? Drooping delivers Asher. In verse 13, which is Genesis chapter 30, verse 13, Drooper. Zilpah, okay, Zilpah, it says in verse 13, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed, and calls his name Asher, which is the zodiacal sign Libra. Libra. And now we get into the age-old story. We get into the age-old story of sex and drugs. Look at Genesis chapter 30, verse 14. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest. Now remember, Reuben is Leah's first son. And he found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother. Mandrake is a plant. It has a narcotic and stimulant property. It has been called the apple of Sodom, the love apple, and the Arabs call it Satan's apple. It's pot. It's pot. So Reuben comes up with one of the 12 tribes comes up with a few joints for his mom. Mommy dearest, I have a present for you. And she liked that. She liked that very much. It says in Genesis chapter 30, verse 14, that Reuben brought these to his mother, who is Leah, but then Rachel said to Leah, hey, give them to me. Give me the stuff. Leah, give me the stuff. Tonight, I want to get high. I want the pot. Leah says, what are you talking about? Now, hey folks, these are God's chosen people. This is the Bible. I'm not making this up. See? So what does Leah turn around and say? Huh? Look at Genesis chapter 30, 15. So wait a minute. You're taking my husband? And now you want my stuff. You're taking my husband? And now you want the drugs. You're crazy. Get out of here. And so Rachel cuts a deal. And Rachel said, look, Leah, I want the stuff. And I'll tell you what I'll give you for the stuff. You can sleep with Jake tonight. And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes. You give me the stuff, and Jake goes to bed with you tonight. And Leah thought over this for about 6 seconds because Jake was hot stuff. And she said, it's a deal. See? So here in Genesis chapter 30, verse 16, Jacob was out in the field for the evening, whittling. It was one of the evenings he wasn't creating. And up comes Leah to Jacob and she says, you've got to come into me tonight because I bought you for some pot. And he laid her that night. That's what it says in the Bible. God's chosen people. Hey, folks, I'm talking about, the patriarchs, Isaac, Jacob, Abraham. This is Jacob. This is the great patriarch of the religion. What did he do? He shacked up with a woman for drugs. He laid in intercourse with a woman because she paid for him with drugs. Do you buy it? Obviously not. Obviously not. Do you see how bizarre the story is? And there's a great Jewish prophet named Moses Maimonides, and he says, whenever you come across the story like this in the Word that goes against your very grain of common sense and decency and understanding, stop! Right there. Because God's trying to tell you something. And the more bizarre the story, the deeper is the truth. Let me show you what this is. Okay? You've got Leah, you've got Rachel. Okay? Rachel is the right side, Leah is the left side. Leah is the physical, the emotions. Rachel is the spiritual. Okay? And what is being told to you now is that you must not allow that was the stimulant that rises within you to filter into the emotional nature. You must allow all of that stimulant in you to filter totally into the spiritual nature. If you want to get high, you've got to get high on that which is the spirit. If you've got to get high, it's got to be Rachel that gets high. And here's the deal, folks. Here's the deal. If you will allow that stimulus within you to rise in the right side through your meditation, the mandrakes in Rachel, then you will be able to intercourse with the father of the 12. What's just been said is, if you will allow the right side to rise to that place of the most high, then you will intercourse with Jacob, who is the father. You will intercourse with Christ, who is the father. And then you will have a blessing given to you of the 12, which is the signs of the zodiac, which is the very signs of your physical life. In other words, there will be a prosperity in your life. There will be a prosperity in your physical. There will be a prosperity in your emotional. There will be a prosperity in your coming forth and your going, in your living your day-to-day physical activities. If you will stop allowing the stimulant to be drained into the emotional side and redirect the stimulant to the spiritual side, then you will intercourse with Jake, and then you will have the blessings upon the 12. The aspects of the physical life will be restored by the Father, the Patriarch, inside of you. Right? Because everything which is the stimulus of our life has been filtered into the emotions. Now you've got to allow Rachel to have that. You've got to come and go into an ecstasy. You've got to go into a spiritual orgasm. You've got to go into a high. And that high has got to be consumed at the right side through your meditation, whether it be Om or was that Elliot said music or whatever. The high has got to be consumed in the right side. And Rachel must sit there. And she has promised you that if you allow this stimulant at the right side in your meditation, you will intercourse with the patriarch and you will understand yourself physically, emotionally, and you'll be healed. Rachel has the elixir. And because of this, when Jacob went back into Leah, she conceived again. And in Genesis 30:18, she brought forth Issachar, which means hired, and is the sign Taurus. And in Genesis 30:20, she brought forth Zebulon, which means dwelling at the sea, which is the sign Pisces. And in Genesis 30:21, she brought forth again, and she gave birth to Dinah, which is Virgo, the virgin. It's completed! The Father has completed you as a full-rounded human, physical, flesh and blood being of the 12 signs of the zodiac and of the 12 aspects of the brain. Why? Because you have allowed the right side to sit in the stimulus of that which brings it up to the highest place, that which brings the elixir of ecstasy to nirvana in your meditation. You have said yes to that. So you intercoursed with the Father and completed. Oh, wait. There is missing one. There is missing one. And it said in verse 22 of Genesis chapter 30, it says, and God remembered Rachel. And God hearkened to her and opened her womb, and she called his name Joseph. Of the coat of many colors, and Joseph is the zodiacal sign Sagittarius. It's all about you and me. It has nothing to do with sex. It has nothing to do with drugs. But this book uses the things that are most common to people to describe that which is the adventure of a life or a million lives. Intercourse with either the left or the right, and that which is the consuming of the elixir of ecstasy, which is the Kundalinic meditation that takes you to nirvana. If you will allow that to happen, then you will be impregnated by the patriarch, and your entire conscious human being, your mental capacity, will be placed in order from that which is Aries to that which is Virgo, or whatever it ends, and the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 12 aspects of the human mind. Allow Rachel then to have the mandrakes. Allow Rachel to be lifted up into the ecstasy of nirvana. Allow your right side to be stimulated in your meditation, and she will rise and she will give you that which is the mind, and then you will be stimulated into the new life of your physical earthly being, totally consumed in that which is the family of Jacob and Rachel. And it's the exact same story when you bring it forward, because if you will allow that which is the right side, Mary, to be consumed in that which is the higher nirvanic bliss of your meditation, she will give you her son, who is Jesus the Christ, and he will give you a child that will be the child of promise. See? See what a story? And do you know that the people out there, when they read this story, they wouldn't read it because they couldn't handle it, because it's sex and drugs and they're not allowed to talk about that in church. They look and look, but they don't see. They listen and listen, but they don't understand. Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Thank you. And if you'll stay with us, if you felt that was pretty good, watch the next one, The Spotted Cow. Okay, we'll see you. Bye-bye. We're doing today, it really is. I think you get a lot out of it. I was just telling the folks here, and you watch this program, it's called The Spotted Cow, and I don't think after you hear it, you'll ever be able to really take the Bible literally again. And this will provide an answer to that age-old question as to whether the Bible is literal. Because you've got to enter into a very occult and mystical story in the Bible, and the whole thing has to do with you and me. It's psychology, which the whole Bible is. The Bible is a book of psychology. You know, and a lot of people tell me different things that different people did, and I don't pay any attention to it, because if it was supposed to be a history book, it would be a history book. If I want to read the history of the formation of Israel or that part of the world, then I'll get a history book. The Bible is a spiritual book, and the things in it, for the most part, deal with the question of the mind. Let me show you why you might have, I think you should come to the conclusion that the Bible is symbolic after you hear this. We're going to be talking about cat. This is the first word ever written on this new board, incidentally. How's that? I don't know if I'm going to get used to it, because I'm used to going that way, so now we have to go this way. But we're going to be talking about cattle, and we're going to be talking about ownership of the cattle, okay? And the premise of the story is our hero wants the cattle to have spots on them, okay? Not to be pure white. But in order to get the spots, he puts funny sticks in front of the cattle before they have sex, so that when they then have sex, when they have babies, they'll have spots on them. That's the premise of the story. And so, you know, given that, we should probably be able to reach a conclusion, hey, something is amiss here. This doesn't seem to be a reasonable thing for adult people to say. But you know what? Most people will still say that's what he did. He put things with spots on them, and when the cows saw them, they had, you know, relationships with the other cows, and then they had cows with spots on them. Well, come on, okay. What we have here, and where we've come so far in this story, is we have Rachel, and Rachel had a barren womb. And as all of the women who give birth to the child of promise, she gave birth to Joseph of the coat of many colors. That was a fulfillment through Jacob, which is basically our ego. This is our spiritual part, the right hemisphere, and that which gives birth to the child of promise. But in addition, there's a physical aspect to our being. And unfortunately, religion tends to cause us to neglect the physical, telling us the world is evil, the flesh is evil. Not so. The spiritual aspect of your body is completely worthless without a physical body. There's no sense to it. I mean, and I'll tell you right now, everybody in this room is more concerned about their physical body than they are their spiritual body, which means that that's a natural thing. It's a natural point of instinct. That's fine. So when Jacob intercoursed with Rachel, after her womb was opened up, she represents the right hemisphere of your brain, and she gives birth to Joseph of the coat of many colors, okay? The child of promise, and we'll talk about him, and I think we start in March doing that. But in addition to that, he intercoursed with Leah and a whole bunch of people who represent the left side, and what was produced? The 12 signs of the zodiac. The 12 tribes of Israel. Oh, you know what? I got to tell you something very interesting. Forget all this for a minute. I was talking to Mustafa the other night. You know Mustafa from our Sufi Muslim friend, and we were getting to on and on and on and on, talking endlessly. But we were talking. He was telling me about the word Israel, and he brought up something interesting, and I just thought of it, and I thought, gee, let me share this with you, because it's very interesting. Okay, as you know, Israel, that word is made of 3 Egyptian gods: the god Isis, the god Ra, who is the mind, and the god El of the bull Mithra cult. And it means when the spirit Isis is in union with the mind Ra, it produces El, which is the power within. Okay, but what he told me is interesting. He says, and this is very true, Bill. He said, well, let me tell you something else. One of the holidays in the Muslim religion commemorates the day when Muhammad had a dream that he went to Jerusalem. And the name of that holiday is Isra. And the word Isra means to walk in the night in Arabic. To walk in the night. And he says it's exactly what to walk in the darkness, to walk in meditation. And he says, just look what happens when you take the Muhammad definition of Isra, to walk in the night, to walk in the darkness, and you add El with it. What have you got? To walk in the darkness with God. To walk in the night with God. To walk in meditation with God. So Isra is a holiday in the Muslim religion, which means Muhammad's dream when he walked in the night to find God in Jerusalem. Is that interesting or what? Isn't that neat? Okay, so I'll tell you that. But anyhow, when Jacob intercoursed with the left side, he produced that which is, see, you have 12 constellations 12 signs of the zodiac of the constellations in the universe. In your head, you actually have physically 6 spots on the left side, 6 spots on the right side, which are the 12 aspects which match the 12 signs of the zodiac. So the intercourse of the 12 signs of the 12 children of the zodiac were extremely important for our left side, and the intercourse which when Rachel's womb was opened up and she was no longer barren was very important for the right side. So forget Rachel, forget Leah, forget all of these people, forget Jacob, forget Laban, these are you. It has nothing to do with people. These things never happened. They happen is the important thing because they're talking about you. They're talking about your mind. And all of this happened, okay, while Jacob was serving Laban. And Laban means white. In other words, as long as that which is your ego, as long as that which is your personality is in service to that which is the higher realm, which is Laban, you will produce the child of promise that will take care of your spiritual side, and you will produce a harmony with the universe of the 12 signs, which will produce your physical side. As long as Jacob is in union with Laban, as long as you are in union with the divine part of your mind. Okay? So, the activity on the left side, very physical, very positive, very productive, as long as we're serving Laban, as long as we're in a union with that which we'll call God. Okay? Now, look at page 24, Genesis chapter 29. Page 24. And in Genesis chapter 29, it says in Genesis chapter 29 and verse 18 that Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. Okay, right there you have this number 7 which means the operation of the 7 chakras in the body. I will serve 7 years. This is the Kundalini. This is the movement of the energy up the 7 chakras to accomplish this creation at the right hemisphere of the brain. Okay? And look at Genesis chapter 29, but now look at verse 30. And he went in also unto Rachel, and loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet another 7 years. In other words, he served 7 years for Leah, he served 7 years for Rachel. There has to be a balance. Equally important was the physical side to that which was the spiritual side. And it's not a question of anybody serving 7 years. Look, let me put it into perspective. I'm not sure somebody tell me what page Revelation chapter 5 verse 1 is. Revelation chapter 5. Just shout out in those little Bibles what page that's on. 1005. 1005. Okay. Go to 1005. Just take a look at it real quickly with me, and you'll see the definition of what's being talked about here. In Revelation chapter 5, I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within. That means within you. And on the back side, that's talking about the spine and the chakras that run up the spine, sealed with 7 seals. Those 7 seals are the 7 chakras, which are being identified here as 7 years. But the important thing here is that the 7 is just as important to your physical as it is to your spiritual. And so there has to be a balance between the two, and that's the beautiful part that we're going to find here. So we see the physical production, which represents the positive aspects of the mind, which produces that which is a harmony with the universe, of the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the spiritual production, which produces, in mystical terms, the child of promise, Joseph of the coat of many colors. Now, look at Genesis, page 25, Genesis chapter 30, verse 25. Here's the interesting point. It came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I can go into my own place in my own country. Here's the point where you have to be you. You can come in and meditate. You can pray. See what church and religions tell you to do? Walk with the Lord, stay with the Lord, serve the Lord forever. You can't. You can't, because you are you. You are a Lord unto yourself. And you have things to do. You have a life to live. You've been given a creative individual power. And here, just as Jacob said, this is you talking to God. Hey, okay, you're nice and everything. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. I sang the songs. I'll see you. I got stuff I got to do. I got places I've got to go. I got things, because you've been given that ability. When Jacob says to Laban, I don't want to hang around here anymore, you know what this is? This is Adam and Eve saying to God, where's the apple? We're going. Enough of the garden already, you know. I'm digging, I'm making peppers and onions. Forget this, I want to go out and build a town. Get out of here. I don't want to sing anymore. You know what it is? It's like when you come in on Thursday night or Tuesday night to meditation, you sit for a half hour. Enough's enough. Enough is enough. You know, you start to scrum. I can hear, as soon as that music comes on at the end, that tells you it's over. Everybody can hear it. You know, we can start to sniffle and to snort and because it's time to go. That's fine. That's wonderful. That's good. See, there is a time to be into yourself as there is a time to be into God. The question is understanding the balance, bringing the two parts of you together in a harmony, in a balance. See, now, and this is an interesting point. This is talking, forget Jacob, forget Laban, forget Rachel, forget Leah. These people don't exist. Think of this as yourself. This is your head. This is your mind. This is all that's interacting within you. Now, since you have brought your attention to Laban, since you have brought your attention to the right side, since you have brought your attention to the higher mind, look what it says here in verse 26 of Genesis chapter 30. Verse 26. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served, and let me go, for you know my service which I have done for you. In other words, hey, come on. You know, what am I getting out of this? You know, I'm sitting here going, or I could be in Atlantic City, you know, playing the slots. Let something happen. Let something, you know, things are, look at Genesis chapter 30, verse 30. It says, hey, look what you had before I came. Now look what you've got. And now, when shall I provide for my own house? You know what's being said there? When you started to do the meditation, when you started to direct yourself inward, things started to increase. You began to understand things. You became enlightened. Things started to multiply within you. You're not the same person that you were before. You don't look at things the way you did before. It's very important. The need to serve in meditation can only be a part of your experience. You've got kids, you've got a house, you've got a job, you've got vacations to go on, you've got things to do, you've got music to listen to, you've got television to watch, you've got food to eat, you've got all of these different things to do. So this has to be a part of it, but just a part of it. It can't be the whole thing. Because people who try to make it the whole thing wind up, and what do? The highlight of their life is on Wednesday night they go to a church basement and eat ziti. That's it. There is life to be lived. And life is good and life is fun. But when you just say this is all there is, then you make all of this evil. And that's what they do even in their songs. They say, the world is no good, the physical is no good, the flesh is no good. That's absolutely wrong. It just has to be balanced, one with the other. So this brings us to the clear-cut importance of the physical side and the attention that has to be paid to your physical side as well as your spiritual side, that you have to bring the two into harmony. Now, we get to the cattle. But I want you to understand, cattle in the mystical realms of Scripture mean thoughts, ideas, things that serve you. Unfortunately, sometimes the cattle jumps over the fence and they kind of run you, but in many instances, the cattle are supposed to respond to you. Genesis chapter 30, right where you are. Now look at verse 29. You know how I have served you and how your cattle was with me. Do you know what you do? When you come in here on a Tuesday night or on Thursday night to meditate, you know what you do? You're watching the cattle. You're taking care of God's cattle. You're watching over the divine thought. Many of you have never done it. Do you know what the story is about the Christmas story? Who were the first ones to see the Christ? The ones who were watching the sheep. Same thing. It's exactly the same thing. When you're watching the sheep, when they're watching the cattle, it means you're watching your thoughts. You're looking at your thoughts. You're watching your thoughts. You're in meditation. Okay? And that's what that means. So remember here, Jacob is you, Laban is you. All of this is one. The emotions and the spirit are in union. You're watching over the thoughts. You're watching over the ideas. You're starting to see things. You're starting to feel things. You're starting to understand things. We received a letter from a Spanish lady from New York the other day, and she was talking about how when she comes to these meetings in New York, now she can begin to understand, and she meditates, and she said it just has opened up to her because she's watching these things. She's watching these things which are given to her. She watches over these, and so then she's the first one to see the Christ. She's the first one to see that which is the impulse within. There is an impulse within you. All of this is this allegorical language talking about the psychology of you, what goes on inside of your mind. Okay. So the mind, the emotions are joined together in this union. The combination of Laban and Jacob seeks to keep the union together. But this isn't going to work. Because if this was the case, then everybody would spend all of their life in church. You would never leave. And what's the most important thing for you when you get to church? To get out. What time is this going to end? And sometimes it just seems like it is never going to end. I'm here forever. You see them, especially in the bigger place where they have the, you used to do it. Even something like on Christmas Eve, you know what they do? They wait until it's filled so they can go stand on the back porch and smoke and everything. What's going on, That's the way, because that is not your normal way. So the important thing is you've got to get on with your life. You're trying here now to understand a balance. Your life is just as important as your spirit. So this balance. So it says in Genesis chapter 30, see where you are? Verse 31. Jacob is saying to Laban, your physical part is dealing with the God part, saying, hey, look, I gotta have something. I can't spend all of my life in church. I can't spend all of I got kids that are going nuts. The dog is messing up. Everything is crazy. I can't hang around here. I gotta go. So what am I going to do? So Laban, which is the God part, the spiritual part, just that part inside of your ego, turns around in Genesis chapter 30, verse 31, and he says, well, what do you want me to give you? And Jacob said, I don't want you to give me anything. But if you'll do something for me, I'll watch your flock again. In other words, I'll continue to meditate. I'll continue to do this prayer. That's what you're saying. But I want, that's what I want. What do you want? Look at verse 32. I'll pass through all of your flock today, and I'll remove from them all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. I'll take all the spotted stuff. This is very deep stuff, folks. All of your thoughts, every single one of them, has a spot. Every single one of them is spotted. And what did Jacob say he's going to do? I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to remove all the spotted ones for you. And what did Jesus say? He instructed you how to remove the spotted cattle. Take no thought. That's your meditation. Huh? So Jacob said, and you have to, and I have to understand that all of that which we own, the thoughts that we have, are spotted. They may be healthy looking, but they're not pure. Okay? It may look good at the time, but it can really be screwed up down the road, right? I thought it was a good idea. It looked great. I never thought this was going to happen. It's because your cattle's spotted. And the point is this. We are understanding now. You're Jacob. That's the physical part. Laban's the higher part. You're going to take all of the spotted thoughts and realize they're yours. Laban takes all the pure thoughts, which are the divine. No problem. Okay? Sounds good so far. Sounds good to me. And how does the Bible put it? How does the Scriptures put it in the word, talking about the word church, which is a misnomer in here because somebody added it. But let me show you, give you an idea what it says. Go to page 958. You are instructed to take no thought. You are instructed to meditate above the thoughts of the mind. You are instructed to cast your energy to the right side. You are instructed, in other words, to go through and weed out all the spotted cattle so that you can dwell in the divine instruction that comes from the higher part of your mind. And it says in Ephesians chapter 5 on page 958 and on verse 27 that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. And what he's talking about is your mind. When all the spotted cattle are weeded out of your mind, that's when you're separating from thought. That's when you may have an out-of-body experience. That's when you, and every so often in meditation, and somebody yelled at me very recently and said, well, you say you don't meditate that much or whatever. You don't practice what you preach. Folks, I practice exactly what you preach. I honestly tell you. I tell you the truth. I could be a phony up here and say I am on my knees meditating every night. I work for a living. I do it as much as I can, but I don't do it as often as I should. And I am thankful that I am disciplined to have to be here on Tuesday and the rest of the time. But I am telling you the truth that I should do it more. I just don't have the time. That's the unfortunate part. So I understand. But I don't think, that you should get beat up necessarily because you tell the truth. And I will. I always tell you the truth. What's the way it is. Anyhow, when I do sit here and I reach that point when suddenly there's absolute nothingness, that's when I know all the spotted cattle have been weeded out. And for that one brief shining moment, as Richard Burton sang in Camelot, for one brief shining moment, there's a place, Camelot. I have arrived. arrived at this holy place. And in that one brief shining moment, the door of the temple is open, and the stars and all of that which is beautiful, and all of the angelic sounds that come from higher places come in and guide me. I don't need an hour. I don't need 50 minutes. I can't get a half hour of solid nothingness and in meditation. But those brief shining moments when all the thoughts are gone, when all the spotted cattle are gone, there is nothing but the white sheep. There is nothing but the white cattle which are owned by God. And at that time when I am overlooking those things, I look to the star, I see the Christ, and the instruction comes in and I am able to know what to do with my. So it's not the kind of a thing where I get a thought that says, hey Bill, this is what you should do. It never comes that way. It's not the kind of a thought that says, don't do this, or this is what you should do, or I'll tell you what you should do, sell this, buy this, don't do this. It doesn't come that way. It just happens. It happens. All of a sudden you're presented with a situation and it happens. The one most important thing in my life, as I was driving back and forth every day from here to Trenton, every day from here to Trenton and driving all over stuff, I said, my God, it's never stop. And I meditated. I never said meditating. I don't want to drive to Trenton anymore. I just meditated and just every so often. And then this boss comes on the scene and he says, what are you driving to Trenton? Why don't you work at home? Nobody said, it didn't come into my mind to say, hey, this is what you should ask for, or why don't you do this, or why don't you do that. It just happened. That which was the owner of the cattle touched the head of the boss, and the boss said to me. And he didn't know that somebody had. That's the way it is. So it's up to Jacob to remove the spots. And when you are removing the spotted cattle, you are removing the carnal thoughts from your mind during meditation. And remember that the white or non-spotted cattle are the divine thought. Now the next statement is very, very important. And I want you to understand this. And this goes to religion. It goes to you and me. Okay? You are capable of spotted thoughts. Nothing more than that. No matter how good your idea is, always meditate about it because it's a spotted cow. And go to the one who has all the white cows, okay? But understand it and realize it, and this is what's being said to you. And listen to this one in Genesis chapter 30, page, whatever it is, 26, verse 33. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come from my hire. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. Oh, the Lord spoke to me and told me to tell you this. You stole it. That's your idea. There is no man on the face of the earth that can tell you that God told him this or God told him that. His mind told him this. It's a spotted cow. Any of the thoughts that I claim are mine or come from me are not spotted. I stole them. They're not mine. I can only speak in the realms of that which is the lower. I claim my words are from God, but really, these are my ideas. Let me show you something. Let me show you. Go to page 647. And in page 647, something about the spotted cows and people who have spotted cows and claim, I've got some white cows in here too, and these white cows are mine. Albert, I own these white cows. I own this great theological stuff this is my stuff, see? What they've done is they've taken white paint and painted over the spot. Because what does it say in Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 8? For thus said the Lord God of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you, neither hearken to your dreams which you caused to be dreamed. For they prophesy falsely unto you in my name. I have not sent them. What you need to know will come from within you, not from some character who sits behind a window somewhere in some building and's got problems that are 10 times worse than you'll ever have. Let me show you something, and how important this is as to what is within you and what is really where you should be going. Go to page 996. And if you look at 1 John chapter 3, page 996, 1 John chapter 3. This is something that you should cut out and stick on your refrigerator or wherever you stick things. Don't tell me where you stick things. 1 John chapter 3. I got the wrong, what is it?
995.
What's 1 John chapter 3 what?
Page 995.
Oh, I got the wrong one.
Left it on your refrigerator.
Yeah. What I'm looking for, there's a part in the Bible, and it says that as long as the Spirit is in you, you need that. Okay, 1 John chapter 2. That's it. 1 John chapter 2, verse 27. Can you find that? But the anointing which you have received of him abides in you, and you need not that any man teach you. But as the same anointing teaches you all things and is truth and is no lie, you shall abide. So there's the answer to that. There's the answer to that. But here's the thing. We'll go back to Genesis chapter 30 and we'll wrap the story up on page 26. Here's the thing. What did Jacob say? I'll go through and I'll take all of the spotted cattle and they'll be mine. Okay, God? You know what? God doesn't want you to have spotted cattle. His whole or her whole thing or their whole thing is that you dwell on the hill and look at the white cattle. That's spirit and physical have two different plans here. Jacob wants the spotted cattle. Your thoughts. Your sexual thoughts. Exciting thoughts, adventurous thoughts, money thoughts, all this stuff. You want that. That's part of it. But this other side says, no, I don't want you to have those thoughts. I want you to look on the fields, bask in the glory of my light. And so what happens? Laban, God turns around in Genesis chapter 30. And look what happens in verse 35. Genesis chapter 30. And Laban removed that day the he-goats that were ring-straked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them to his sons. In other words, he don't want you to have that. He separated them himself. No, Jake, I want you to take care of my sheep. I don't want you thinking about all of that crap you're thinking about. I want you to meditate on the good things. Do you see what's happening here? This is what Spirit wants you to do, because Spirit knows this is the way your life is going to be wonderful. This is what they said to Adam and Eve. Oh, Adam, oh, Eve, just stay here in the garden with your little hoe, and hoe, and hoe, and hoe, ho, ho, ho. That's where it came from. You didn't know that ho, ho, ho came from that, did you? But Adam and Eve said, the guy's fakakta, I don't want to hang around. This guy's, Adam and Eve said, this guy's crazy. He hangs out in the bushes all the time. He's got snakes walking around here to talk. I want out of here. I want to go to New York. I don't want to live here no more. I think this stinks. But have something like that happen. The point being, God here takes all the spotted cattle and he won't give them to Laban, to Jacob. Huh? And what did they tell Adam and Eve? There's one tree in the forest. There's 6 billion trees in the forest, but there's one bad tree. And of all the trees in the forest, there's only one bad tree. And I'm going to show you which one it is. It's that one. Don't touch it. You touch that tree, and you'll get smart like me. Okay? Now, go on and play with all the other trees. That's like me saying, I want you to close your eyes and think of anything but an elephant. Okay, so here's the point. Look at Genesis 30, 35. Laban takes it, and he sets 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. 3. That means something's going to happen. There's going to be a new life. There's going to be something stirring, a resurrection, a difference, a change is going to happen here. We get to the very occult activity of the mind that we're involved with here. So far, so good. We don't have that long to go, but this is really neat. So now you've come to the point where God has you in control, Lorraine, and you're no longer able to think of those thoughts that you like to think. You're no longer to consider those things, Sarah, that you like to consider. Now you are thinking of the things of God and the white things. It's all beautiful. But Jacob decides on something. Look at Genesis chapter 30 and verse 37. Now remember, you're on your own. God is gone. And you're to sit here and dwell on his sheep. Just to think about the white things. Huh? He's gone. So Jacob took him rods of green poplar. What's that? See, you've got to screw that screw in. Rods. The word rod means power. The word green means astral. That's a higher level of the mind. Okay? What else did he take? And he took the hazel and chestnut tree. Well, we just put chestnut. The word that's important here is the word nut. Okay? For those of you who, if you want to study mythological symbols, the goddess of the human head is nut. And that's exactly why they say, Sarah, you're nuts. Or Cindy, you're nuts. Or Dennis, you're nuts. Or Joan. No. But that's true. Her name was Nut, and she is the goddess of the head, of the human head. So he takes that, and then he takes the, what else? Well, that's the hazelnut tree because it sheds its outer bark. It sheds outer bark, okay? Now this is what the plan is. I am totally in oneness with God. I am in a union with the divine. I am meditating and I am praying. I have no thoughts of my own, okay? And you know what? It stinks. I'm not having any fun. I'm not enjoying this. I'm either going to become a reprobate or I'm going to kill myself because I don't like living in the Garden of Eden anymore. I want to have a good time. I want to get in. I want to solve my problems. And so what he does is in Genesis 30, verses 37 to 42. Look at Genesis 37. Look at verse 38. And he set the rods before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs. When the flocks came to drink, they should conceive when they came to drink. Huh? And the flocks conceived before the rods and brought forth cattle, ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. See? Now it's very important to realize that he put it at the place of the water. Water means truth. Your truth, God's truth. See? Now, okay, right away we know this is not a literal story, I hope. You cannot put spotted things in front of animals and they're going to have spotted babies. That's not, it doesn't work that way. So, you know, this is, believe me, this is a mystical story. So that's what he does. And in verse 41 says, when the strong cattle gave birth, were about to give birth, Jacob placed these things in front of them so that he would have the strength. He would have the strength. Why? Because what do you want? You want the ability, you want power. You want the ability to compete. You want the ability to score. You want the ability to be victorious. And when they were weak and feeble, he didn't put the spotted things in front of them, so they came out white. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The weak and feeble things, the things of the spirit, he didn't want. The strong and dynamic things, he wanted with the spots. And so all of his cattle came strong. See, and all of Laban's cattle was very feeble. You know what's being said here? Listen to what's being said here. Stop reading for a minute. What's being said here? What's being said here is those things that you place before you in your mind can manifest into reality. What you think and concentrate about can come true. And if you dwell too much on it, it can become a part of your life. If you dwell too much on the spotted crap, you can give birth to spotted crap, and it can be all over the place. And likewise, if you dwell on that which is the simple, if you dwell on that which is that timid spiritual purity, it can also give birth and manifest itself in your life. The Spirit. It's up to you. Whatever you put in front of you, that's what you can get. That's what he did. See? And how did he do it? You rose to the astral plane, which means all of this happens in your consciousness. Okay? The hazel, the nut tree, it all happens in your head. It happens in your brain. And you separate yourself. In this particular case, he didn't separate himself from himself. He separated himself from that which is the God part. When you separate yourself from that which is the God part, you can assure yourself that those things which come to fruition from you will be filled with spots. And they'll be yours. And they'll be yours. And you know what happens now? What you're going to see in Genesis 31. The mind will demand its due and will begin to chase you. And you'll begin to run. And you'll take everything that you had and you run. You may live in the same house that you live, but you've been running all of your life. And you're trying to find a safe haven. So the spotted cow is the lower thoughts. You've done some skullduggery, but you've got all of these things now spotted. You're no longer connected to that which is God. You have taken everything and you've run away with it and you've got it all. But all of that which is the horrors of life come down upon Jacob. And Jacob eventually, as you'll see as we go into the story, will have to get off of his horse and bow down 7 times to Esau. And it will all happen after he experiences the pineal gland of the brain. And after he experiences the pineal gland of the brain, he'll realize he didn't need all of this. Oh, sure, he wanted it, okay. It's all right. But he just took it all and he ran away with it. Let me tell you about, real quick, let me read you one line from the Sadabra, Krishna. Having become, listen, a spotted cow, go to the sky and bring us rain. In other words, now that your mind is loaded with all of the spots and all of the discoloration of that which is the lower, you had better raise yourself to the higher consciousness and bring us the truth. Having become a spotted cow, go to the sky and bring us rain. So Jacob, when last seen, had Rachel, Leah, all of his girlfriends, 10,000 herds of spotted cows, and was heading out of town. And Laban came back looking for everything, and all he found was a bunch of frumps laying on the ground, chewing their curds and whey, saying, this guy ripped me off. And then chases on, and it becomes interesting. But if you'll read and listen to that story, you read it yourself, think about it yourself, and how you and I do these things. But the point being, very, very simply, that if we'll take from this story the realization that, okay, we need God for a period of time, but we also need ourselves. But how we go about doing these things is another thing. And that even though we may take and think that we have the power and we have that which is the strength, the only way we're going to survive is by running with it. And the only way we're going to survive is by running away from that which is God. And now you're going to see he's going to follow him. And I think next week we have somebody sat on God, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh, it's true. It's true. It's true. Just give me 1 second. And the spotted cow. And next week is who's sitting on God. Do you run? Next week, it's really true. What happens? Laban comes looking for God, and he finds there's a young lady sitting on him. See ya. Bye-bye. Joan will come on.